download our Revise It Right revision app for hundreds of videos, quizzes, exam questions, tutor support, and so much more. This video is about trends in energy resource use. Now, as we've already talked about, there are two ways to generate electricity through renewable and non-renewable sources. And what we've seen is from the non-renewable sources, that the burning of the fossil fuels can cause a lot of environmental damage. Now, what we need to understand is that first, over the 20th century, electricity use in the UK and across most of the world increased. Okay, so in the 20th century, it would make no surprise that we've used more electricity as it's gone on. Okay, now what would be more surprising, you'd assume therefore that across the 21st century, it would be the same, as we now are even more reliant on electrical things. We have more phones, more of everything, and we're using electricity way more. However, since the beginning of the 21st century, electricity in the UK is actually decreasing. Now, this isn't because we're using less electrical appliances, but it's because we're getting better at making electrical appliances more efficient, and we're also more aware of energy use in our homes, so more of us turn lights off when they're not needed and various things like that. Now, what you need to understand is that most of the electricity across the world, in particular in this country, are produced by fossil fuels. Okay, so most of the electricity is generated by burning fossil fuels. However, we are trying to increase our use of renewable energy. Now, actually, the UK has aimed to provide 15% of its total usage energy by 2020. Okay? So fossil fuels is our main source of energy at the moment. During the 20th century, we use more electricity. Actually, in the 21st century, electrical usage is decreasing because we're becoming much better at making appliances that are more efficient. Now, although scientists have identified environmental issues with energy resources, so what we're talking about here is fossil fuels. Burning fossil fuels, we know, causes carbon dioxide, we know sulfur dioxide, and that's bad for the environment. It's not just the case that we can just switch over to renewable energy and that's fixed, because there are many factors that can limit our ability to deal with these issues. So, for example, as we said, renewable resources are usually limited by their reliability. For example, the wind is only available when it's windy and the solar is only available when it's sunny, and therefore using these is very, very limited. Okay, and as well as this, fossil fuels are cheap. They're cheap to run and they're reliable. So this is one of the factors, in fact two factors here, cheap and reliable, as to why we can't just switch over to renewable energy resources now. Okay, because renewable energy resources, they're not as reliable. And in a lot of cases, we don't have the infrastructure yet built. We don't have enough wind turbines, solar energy power, all this built right now to be able to do this. There's a cost involved in building all of these. Some energy resources, as I already talked about, are not reliable, such as wind. Now, there is plenty of research into improving the reliability and cost of renewable resources, but as I say, at the moment, we're not there. Okay, so it's understanding that although scientists have identified environmental issues with energy resources, there are many factors that limit our ability to just switch over to all these renewable resources right now. And as we said, we do therefore currently depend on fossil fuels because they're reliable and easy to transport. Now, also need to be aware that actually, like, the different times of the day have different demands on electricity. So, for example, when everyone finishes work and school, there is a huge increase in demand. And also when large events are on, so a World Cup final or Olympic final, anything like this, it's going to increase in electricity usage because more people are using it. The national grid, which we'll talk about in a future video, therefore needs to prepare for this. Okay, so the important thing about this video, it's weird to understand sort of what knowledge you require from this video, but we need to understand how the ways we use energy resources have changed over time. So, for example, in the 20th century, we've increased the amount of electricity used, but when we got to the 21st, we've actually decreased because electrical appliances are more efficient. And we also need to understand that although scientists have identified environmental issues with energy resources, other factors can limit our ability to deal with these issues. So, for example, because renewable fossil fuels are reliable, they're cheap, whereas non-renewables, so like wind, solar, are not. Remember to download our Revise It Right revision app, watch over 700 videos, answer 4,000 plus quiz questions, over 1,000 flashcards, 1,000 exam questions, worksheets, forums, and get help from qualified teachers and so much more. The link is in the description. Summary questions. Pause the video now to test your understanding. Okay, so question 1, where does most of our energy currently come from? Well, it mostly comes from fossil fuels. How are most of our energy demands met? Well, again, through burning fossil fuels. What were the changes in energy uses across the 20th century? Well, they increased. We increased the amount of electrical usage of the 20th century. But what about over the 21st? Well, they actually decreased. True or false, most of electricity comes from non-renewable resources. That's true. True or false, we're trying to increase our renewable energy resource use. Again, that is true, we are indeed. And name 2 factors that limit our ability to switch to completely renewable energy. Well, of course, that will be the fact they are not as reliable, so they're unreliable, and also more expensive to set up because our infrastructure for them is not currently there. So we've now looked at a video on trends in energy resources. There are plenty more practice questions on the website, and as ever, if there's anything you didn't understand, get into contact with a tutor who will happily help.